In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is the first sentence of the Bible, and one of the most important. Genesis 1 can be summed up as saying, in the beginning, before everything else, there was God. God created everything we see that isn't man-made. Humans, animals, the earth, the sky, nature, the sun, moons, stars, and planets. He created it all, and it was all good. In fact, it was very good. This indicates that the Bible operates on this belief, and that the focus of the Bible is on God, and on understanding God as the main character in this epic story or history. The Bible could be looked at as God's biography, though it is a very unique one. Genesis 1, like most of the Bible, if not all of it, can seem quite simple at first glance, until you really think deeply about what everything means. Reading and learning about other passages of the Bible helps to unpack and interpret it, as well as real-life experience and knowledge of real-life things, like the sciences. A question I had as a kid was, if God created everything, well, who created God? It was hard for me to wrap my mind around anything that wasn't governed by time. Everything I see had a beginning. The answer is in the Bible, but requires us to really think about it. When God speaks to Moses from the burning bush in the book of Exodus, he calls himself I am, meaning he has always existed before, now, and forevermore in the future. He always was and is and always will be in the future. In other words, God exists outside of time. In order for us to exist now, there has to have been something or someone who always existed. Even if you believe that space rocks crashed into each other and somehow created us, who or what created the space rocks? What is it that forced or propelled them into motion? When you really think about it, the Big Bang Theory is harder to accept than an infinite God who has always been, who was created by no one. It is hard for finite minds to comprehend the infinite. A great example of this is to try to think of the highest number. Though we may try, we cannot do it. We should not limit the infinite God by our finite understanding. This is the reason for why so many cultures use divine stories to explain our origins, to help us understand it. This is probably also why philosophy, the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence, can seem very pie in the sky at first glance. In order to find the truth, students of the Bible must be careful not to make the Bible say what it doesn't say, and students of science must not make science say what it doesn't say. We must come to know our limitations in order to do so. While science is great for helping us to understand many things, science does have its limits. There are things that cannot be measured scientifically, like love, for instance. We should avoid reducing God's creation to merely scientific terms. The word Genesis means the origin, or the formation of something. Both are quite appropriate for this book of the Bible, considering it being about the origins of the earth, and us, as well as the formation of the earth and us. What is interesting about this word is that the word gene is in it. Also, Genesis is the root word for generate, which means to bring into existence, to define, to originate, or to be the cause of something. All this is quite appropriate for this book. On the subject of words is the word history, which I notice sounds like his story. The Bible is history because it is his story, that is God's. This way of thinking of the word also seems to suggest that we take part in a larger, more epic story, God's story. There are quite a number of things that can be gleaned from this first chapter. First of all, a good question is, why did God create everything? Did he need to? No. God is perfectly self-sufficient. He doesn't need anything or anybody. He is able to create anything, and he knows all. He has infinite power. He didn't need to. He wanted to create it. God is creative. He chose to create it because he is love. Love is best expressed towards something or someone. Love is at the core of his character. This is much like an artist who has a passion or love for something or someone. He or she slaves away to create something beautiful and breathtaking. He or she hopes that people will be moved or impacted by it. There is also a hope that others will understand it, as an expression of something deep within themselves that may be hard to convey in other ways. God is distinct from his creation in the same way that an artist is distinct from his creation. The art may be an expression of the artist, but any one image only shows one part and one view of the artist. The artist is more complex than that. God is outside of the limitations that many of us have. God is eternal and in control of his world. If anything could and should be changed, you have to appeal to the one who has the power to change it. It's hard to know if the description of how God creates things in Genesis is literal or figurative. One thing is clear, though. God speaks his creation into being. His words are powerful enough to create living things. We, as humans who are made in the image of God, obviously do not have the same power God has. But our words have power. We can build up or destroy people with our words. We should be careful how we use our words, in the same way that someone who is learning how to use a weapon, like a sword, should be careful how he uses it. On the first day, God creates light, which is incredibly symbolic. God sees and judges that the light is good. Light and darkness are separated into day and night. Darkness is simply the absence of light. Light pushes away the darkness. It shows things for what they really are. It is a place of safety, happiness, and joy, when no evil is present. It is where things are known and the truth is clear. Light is attractive and gets your attention. It helps us to see and understand things. Light is also symbolic of life. God is the source of all light. Light also means truth. If our eye is our lamp, if it is filled with truth or light, it can see well. But if it is filled with darkness, then it will be filled with lies and falsity. Darkness, on the other hand, is the unknown. It allows evil to hide, and makes the truth unclear and hidden. It can present evil as if it is not evil, is normal or good. It retreats in the presence of light. Darkness is symbolic for falsity and ignorance, as well as death. When you are full of darkness, you do not know where you are going. The darkness cannot comprehend the light. We are supposed to push back and conquer the darkness. On the second day, God separates the sea and the sky. The sky is referred to as the heavens in some versions. The sea was thought of as chaos in ancient times, characterized as an ancient beast. Water itself is incredibly symbolic. It is representative of emotion, clarity, and transparency, cleansing, healing, nourishment, reflective, truth. Truth that we thirst for. Change, flow, flexibility, compassion, and caring. Wells in the Bible are places for rest and water. To thirst is to seek instruction, while Jesus refers to himself as the source of living water. a fountain of truth springing up into living water. Water has so many forms and uses. It's used as a power source for electricity. It can take the form of rain. It can become a destructive flood or tsunami, like in the flood story of Genesis. It can take the form of pools and puddles. There are water parks and water guns for fun. Seas, lakes, streams, and rivers are all bodies of water. Water takes the shape of whatever contains it. To go deep or depth is easily pictured as going deeper into the sea or in water. When it becomes cold enough, it becomes hard as ice. When it becomes hot enough, it turns into a gas, steam. Our bodies are said to be 80% water. Snow is made up of water as well. Ice/water reflects like a mirror. In some of my favorite media, blitzball is a fictional water sport in the world of Final Fantasy X. Water is clearly thematic, meaning change. Tidus's iconic weapon is the Brotherhood, a water sword. A squall is a storm at sea, which is also the name of the protagonist of Final Fantasy VIII. It probably refers to how Squall appears calm on the outside, but there is a storm going on inside him, and throughout the game. The sky is also made on the second day. It is referred to as the heavens in the Bible, due to the way ancient people saw it. The sky represents air or thought, and is associated with creativity and thoughtfulness. It's easy to see why, since the sky often looks like something of a painting that changes slowly. The sky is often depicted in paintings. We need air to breathe. A deep breath can be relaxing. Wind is a force we can't see, but we feel. It is a good analogy to understanding how there are other things we can't see, but we feel. If we are in water too long, we need to come up out of it for air. Our breath is proof of God's breath in us. Exercise causes us to breathe more and deeper, like we need more of God's life to do more strenuous things. Clouds in the sky can cover the sun, rain, or snow come from them, or lightning can strike. Tornadoes are a destructive, incredible force of wind. Lightning is electricity. We have electrical currents and neurons that fire in our brains. It's mysterious and vast. Flight has always been a dream for many people, wanting to freely fly through the sky. Gravity pushes us down to the ground. Is gravity a force that only exists in a world of sin? The sky is beautiful, artistic, and it changes color. Cloud is the name of the main protagonist of Final Fantasy VII, and it refers to how Cloud's mind is clouded. The game is about discovering who he is. In Final Fantasy XIII, there is a character called Lightning. She's the main character, and this is a quote from her that kind of makes up the reason why she's named Lightning. I was just like you. My parents died. I had to be strong for Sarah, so I thought I needed to forget my past, and I became Lightning. I thought by changing my name, I could change who I was. I was just a kid. Lightning. It flashes bright, then fades away. It can't protect. It only destroys. Sarah tried to tell me, but I wouldn't listen. I threatened her. The only one who believed her was Snow. The Final Fantasy series certainly has a thing for naming characters with nature names or weather names. Lightning is the main character in Final Fantasy 13. Cloud is the main character in Final Fantasy 7. Squall is the main character in Final Fantasy 8. And then there's Snow in Final Fantasy 13. And and Terra in Final Fantasy 6. Of course, Terra means Earth, which is the next one here. On the third day, the waters were gathered together and dry land appeared. Earth is associated with stubbornness, solidity, strength, hardness, as well as resistance to change. You find many precious metals in the earth, such as diamonds, rubies, sapphires, gold, and silver. It goes to show that God put treasures or secrets in the earth to find and use. Could it represent the deep truths of wisdom that need to be discovered in the world? God says that He is our rock and our foundation, much like the ground beneath our feet. If you look around the world, God's creativity with earth and rocks is amazing. The variety and color of the various earth formations is pretty cool. There are mountains, hills, islands, deserts, and other land formations which can't be easily named. I personally always loved world maps in video games and fantasy novels, as it gives me a bird's eye view of the land, and therefore I can get a sense of where I want to go to explore. It invokes my desire to explore and, if I can use the word, conquer the land. It's also important to note that buildings are made up of rocks, earth, and metals. Humans themselves are made and formed from the earth, hence the name Earthlings. Earthquakes and tremors are destructive forces of nature utilizing earth, which is not to even mention the magma beneath the earth's crust. Vegetation also springs up out of the earth on the third day. This includes plants, trees, shrubs, bushes, grass, flowers, etc. There is an incredible amount of variety when it comes to vegetation. Think or research how many types of trees or flowers there are. There is a staggering amount of variety out there. There's also an incredible variety of fruits and vegetables out there. Try Googling how many varieties of apples there are. It is staggering. There's an incredible amount of symbolism here as well. Vegetation represents growth, life, seeds, offspring, reproduction, complexity, strong roots, as well as bearing fruit, beauty, greenery, life-giving, food, shade, colorful. The Garden of Eden is a picture of heaven, abundant and full of food. Gardens themselves make one think of beauty, design, and sanctuary. A tree symbol is used to map out family ties and connections, perhaps like the relationship charts in stories. To blossom, or what has also been called flowering manhood or womanhood, means to come of age, to grow into who you were designed to be, much like a flower. Going into true detail on the meaning of the large variety of vegetation would take far too long. You're welcome to do your own research. One example in the Bible is the mustard seed. On the fourth day, God makes two great lights that govern the day and night. The sun governs the day, giving light and warmth to us all. It exposes physical things. It's harder to sneak around in the day. We need the sun to grow just like plants need it. The sun is a great analogy for God and His holiness. To get near the sun would mean destruction. The sun is incredibly hot. Furthermore, it is the center of our solar system, similar to how God is the center of everything. God is incredibly powerful, and normally we would not be able to survive merely being in His presence. The moon governs the night and reflects light from the sun off it. It doesn't produce its own light. Its shape marks the seasons and days, that is, the lunar cycle. The relationship it has with the sun is a good picture of our relationship with God, as well as the relationship between a man and a woman. This is probably why the moon is sometimes considered feminine and mysterious. In Final Fantasy IV, there is 2 moons, but one of them is not a real moon, but rather an alien vessel. In The Legend of Dragoon, there is the moon that never sets, frozen in place. The part of the moon that is shined on is the part we see shining brightly. The stars are smaller lights that light up the night, referred to as heavenly bodies. I believe they are a picture of the saints. Those that follow Jesus will be like a light in the night. The seasons mentioned in the Bible were probably farming seasons. That being said, I think our current seasons have rich meaning to them still, that reflects God. Spring is the season that puts a spring in your step. Winter is over. The sun is returning. It's a time of renewal. It's a time for new journeys and new projects. Rain is often depicted as part of spring, meaning a cleansing. Following the rain is a rainbow, which is beautiful and colorful. Rainbows are a symbol of when God promised never to destroy the earth by flood again. It is a time for plants to bloom, baby animals, and love. Summer could be seen as the climax of the year, due to the hot and warm weather and the sun. The days are longer and the nights are warm. People go to beaches, go on vacations, and have adventures aplenty. There is a sense of vitality, youthfulness, and fun, as well as joy, expression, and action. Fall or autumn is the transition period before winter. The colors of leaves change, perhaps referring to a sort of golden age before death. The nights lengthen, and therefore the dark lengthens. It is the last of the harvest season. Animals stock up for the winter. We have a time of thanksgiving for what we have. Winter is cold, a dark season that is a time for reflection. The animals hibernate or go someplace warm. It is silent. The ice of a pond is like a mirror. It is a time to analyze your actions and understand what you have achieved. Snow covers the ground, representing purity. Of it is the season with Christmas in it, and a time for getting together with loved ones. It's a time for New Year's resolutions and planning for the next year. It is just for a season, as spring is around the corner. In the Chronicles of Narnia, winter was more symbolic, with Narnia in an unending winter without Christmas. One of the worst things for a child. On the 5th day, sea and flying animals are created. Animals have living souls, but they do not have spirits. On the 6th day, land animals are created. They are an even more incredible display of God's creativity and power, since they have living, moving bodies. God gave the plants for them to eat. Also, on the 6th day, God created human beings, male and female. Human beings are made in the image of God, which means we contain His essence in us. We are not gods, but rather we are God's masterpiece, which display His creativity, power, and goodness. God created us to rule over the animals, govern the earth, and to multiply and fill the earth. The image that could easily be gotten is that we are like kings who reign over and take care of and manage the land and the animals. On the 7th day, God rested. He saw His work, said it was very good. This is the reason for why the weekend exists. 6 days to do work, and on the 7th day, you rest and enjoy the work you've done. The 7 days of creation is why we have the 7-day week. What is also interesting about the pattern is that in the first 3 days, God forms the earth, and in the next 3 days, God fills the earth. I could attempt to summarize the Bible by saying that God is the hero of the story throughout the ages. This is the story of how, that is, stories and art from many people throughout history, God rescues and saves us from evil and leads us from hell to heaven, darkness to light, or paradise. God made both man and woman in his image. Neither one is made more in the image of God than the other. From the beginning, the Bible places both man and woman at the pinnacle of God's creation. Neither gender is exalted over the other, nor depreciated. We are a reflection of God's glory. The image of God describes our entire being as humans, not just one aspect. We ought to reflect his character in our love, patience, forgiveness, kindness, and faithfulness. Knowing we are made in God's image provides a solid basis for self-worth. It is not based on the things we traditionally base our self-worth on. Because of this, we can feel good about ourselves. Criticizing or downgrading ourselves and others is criticizing what God has made and the abilities he has given us. Knowing that you are a person of worth helps you love God, know him personally, and make a valuable contribution to those around you. God made you for a good reason and for a purpose. All that God created was excellent in every way. You are a part of God's creation, and he is pleased with how he made you. You are valuable to him. God wants to have a relationship with us. That is why God paved the way to enable us to communicate with him. No other being, plants and animals, has that privilege. God delegated some of his authority to the human race. He expected us to take responsibility for the environment and other creatures that share our planet. We must not be careless and wasteful as we fulfill this charge. God was careful in how he made this earth. We should be too, in taking care of it. There's nothing wrong with feeling good about the work we do. God himself took enjoyment in his work. Is our work good or not is the only concern. Or, would God consider our work to be good? After everything is said and done, everything God created was good.